Welcome to the SBI Podcast, offering CEOs, sales and marketing leaders ideas to make the number.
Welcome to the SBI Podcast, a weekly broadcast dedicated to helping you make your number by getting your peers to share with you how they are making theirs. Today we're going to demonstrate on how to drive revenue per sales head up and time to productivity for new sales hires down. So why this topic? Getting an increase in sales headcount is difficult. The expense cops, otherwise known as the finance department, expect all the current sales reps to be at quota before they agree to add any new heads. And when new salespeople are hired, there's little patience from the executive team members who want each to generate revenue as quickly as possible. The sales enablement function exists to onboard new sales hires and to drive revenue per sales head up. Neglect sales enablement and forgo adding additional headcount in the future. My name's Greg Alexander. I'm your host today, and helping me with our demonstration is an executive who knows a thing or two about this topic. His name is Sean Cataldo. He's the Senior Director of Global Salesforce Effectiveness at Veritas Technologies. He's also a diehard Patriots fan and a fellow Bostonian, and if you can tell, that's where I originate from, so we have a lot in common. So Sean, welcome to the show, and please introduce yourself to the audience.
Great. Thanks a lot, Greg. Pleased to be here. And as you mentioned, I look after our Salesforce effectiveness team here at Veritas. And this is a topic that's very near and dear to our heart and certainly our business.
Okay, very good. And for those that might not be familiar with Veritas, tell them a little bit about what your company does.
Sure. So Veritas is in the business of managing our customers' information and really helping them harness the power of that information, regardless of whether it lives on-prem, in virtual systems, or in the cloud. And our mission is really to help them move that data wherever it needs to be to help drive top-line revenue.
Okay, very good. So we're going to talk about sales enablement in the context of an enterprise software company. All right, let's jump into the questions here. And I'm going to start, Sean, at a high level. Because, and I'm doing this for a reason, I think sometimes people think of sales enablement and they don't think that it's a strategic function, but it is. So by me starting with the business outcome question, which is, what are the business outcomes that the sales enablement needs to deliver? I'm doing so because I want to start strategically and then we'll dive down into the tactics. So what are the business outcomes that you're on the hook for?
Yeah, so I categorize them in really three major areas. The first is we are, in fact, charged with reducing time to productivity across our entire sales force. And that's not just for new hires, but also for existing hires and making sure that they are able to execute on our new product introduction and go-to-market plans. The second area is around enabling our sellers and partners to consistently grow a quality pipeline. And the third area is helping those sellers accelerate the velocity of that pipeline.
Okay, fantastic. So very tight, three business outcome objectives. Now, if we come down from there a little bit, we're going to have strategic focus areas. So think of these as kind of like programs that you would run to accomplish those business outcomes. So, Sean, my next question is, what are the strategic focus areas of your sales enablement team?
Yeah, so there are four strategic areas. The first is onboarding, and that ties, of course, directly back to reducing time to productivity. We indoctrinate our new hires through a very rigorous program that helps them understand our strategy, our vision, and how to bring value to our customers. The second area is really ensuring that our existing sales force is able to execute on those go-to-market priorities, whether they're direct sellers, technical sellers, or in our channel. The third area has to do with our focus around sales process and tools, helping to ensure our selling motion is consistent and repeatable. And the fourth area is around developing the selling skills that our teams need to be able to execute that process with world-class efficiency.
Very good. You mentioned one thing that I often overlook, but I'm glad that you brought it up, is that when we talk about ramping salespeople, we tend to only think about it in terms of new sales hires, and it clearly plays a role there. But as you mentioned, new product introduction, you've got to ramp the existing team against the new product introduction as well. So it's a similar process. You agree?
It is, yeah, very much. I would even go a step further to say beyond just new product introduction, when we're packaging new offers to market based on the demands that our customers are facing, it's a similar process as well. So our existing sellers are always in a position of needing to improve their understanding of our products in the marketplace.
Okay, so that's a bona fide insight here. Ramping sales talent isn't just for new sales talent, it's also for the existing talent. Okay, one more question for you in this segment, which is regarding the organizational chart. for the sales enablement organizational chart and how it interfaces with the sales department in general. And the reason why I'm asking this question is sales enablement, in my opinion, has been around a long time. It's called something different today. It's called sales enablement. And it has maybe a more tightly defined role in a company and supported by much better tools. However, years ago, and I've been doing this for a long time, sales enablement used to be lumped into sales ops, and it was kind of one and the same. But recently we've seen those two things split, which I think is a really smart move. It sounds like at Veritas, sales enablement is its own standalone function, and it's a sister group to sales ops. Is that correct?
Well, we're actually a part of sales operations today,
Okay.
but that dialogue is very much alive and well inside of Veritas in terms of where really does sales enablement deserve to live. And there's a lot of talk about it actually being a direct line reporting function to the head of sales.
Okay, so what does the org chart look like these days at Veritas?
So, you can really break down our org chart in really two major categories. We have global leadership and teams that focus on sales enablement, and then we have our geo teams. The idea at the global level is to establish those standards and measurements of the programs that we need to deliver to our sales force. And our global leadership team faces off directly with our EVP of Worldwide Sales and Operations, as well as with our Chief Product Officer and our Chief Marketing Officer. The geographic side of our org chart focuses on really being that frontline business partner with the geo sales leaders, first and foremost being a feedback mechanism so we understand what the teams need in order to drive their business forward. But these teams are also integral in helping to deliver and reinforce the enablement that we're making available.
Okay, quick question for you on the field piece of it, which that was a great description. How does sales enablement in the field differ than field marketing?
So we really focus on learning and reinforcement from a sales enablement point of view. Field marketing's responsibility is really to help the local teams generate demand in the marketplace. But our responsibility is really to ensure that our internal sales teams, again, our channel and our technical sellers, are capable of articulating the value around the solutions that we're going to market with.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, there you have it. We're rocking and rolling today. This is a good time for us to take a break. So we're going to take a break from the interview, and I want to invite you to participate in a remarkable experience. So think of this as a personal invitation from me to you to come to the studio. What is the studio? It's a multi-million-dollar, one-of-a-kind, state-of-the-art executive briefing center located in Dallas, Texas. It was developed by SBI specifically for executive teams like you that sit inside of companies with aggressive revenue growth goals, who don't have a lot of time to waste, and personally have a lot on the line. Let's face it, to grow revenues faster than your industry and your competitors every month, quarter, and year, it's pretty difficult to do. A visit to the studio increases the odds that you're going to be able to do that because it's built on the proven strength of SBI and our clients and experts like we have here today on the podcast and Shaun. So if you want to check it out, visit our website, salesbenchmarkindex.com/the studio to book your visit. This is the SBI Podcast. We'll be back in a moment.
Meet Chuck. He's the head of sales for a business services company. He stays on top of sales and marketing trends by listening to SBI podcasts on his morning commute.
The plan is to understand what your revenue target is.
Except on Tuesdays. That's when he jams out to 80s New Wave. On Wednesday, it's SBI all morning long, with more emerging best practices from the business world.
I'd say the biggest thing you need to avoid is leading without support.
Until Thursday. That's 90s Grunge Day. On Friday, it's back to business. That's when Chuck ends the week on a high note with more hits from SBI.
Sales is really straightforward. You make your number, you don't make your number.
Rock on, Chuck. How do you SBI? Get the most out of your SBI experience. Manage your account at howdoyousbi.com.
Welcome back, everybody. You're listening and watching the SBI Podcast. This is Greg Alexander, and today's guest is Sean Cataldo, Senior Director of Global Salesforce Effectiveness at Veritas Technologies. Today, we're demonstrating how to drive revenue per sales head up and time to productivity for new sales hires down. We're going to jump back into our questions. I'm going to get a little bit more tactical here in segment 2. And Sean, I want to start with this concept of a sales methodology. Do you all have a sales methodology there? And if so, tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So we're actually in the process right now of selecting a sales methodology. It is critical for us to develop the right selling skills around our sales process in order to ensure our sales team's performance is consistent. So while we have yet to actually select a sales methodology, we've done a lot of research. And what we do know about the methodology we'll eventually select is that it needs to be custom in nature to accommodate for the ongoing evolution our customers are facing around technology, but also the way in which they buy is changing. So this needs to be a living process for us.
Yeah. You know, something to mention to the audience here, which I think is super important, is the fact that it needs to be custom. If you license a sales methodology from one of the sales training firms, those are good methodologies. The problem is that they're generic in nature, and you typically have to customize them anyways, and the customization is greater than 50%. So why not just start from scratch and build your own sales methodology? In addition, if you can license it, so can your competitors. So if everybody's using the same approach, and some of these sales methodologies are pretty popular, you basically have commoditized the way you're engaging with the customers because everybody's doing the same thing. So if you put yourself in the shoes of the customer and everybody walks in and they have the same sales methodology to engage you with, I mean, there's no differentiation at the point of contact. And as we know, how you sell is as important as to what you sell. So think about sales methodology, think about customizing it. All right, let me move on to the account planning process. So something that when I talk to people like yourselves, they're really focused on having an effective account planning or account management process. Do you guys have an account planning tool there? And how do you think about this?
We do, and again, this is another area that we're evolving our approach around. But you know, Greg, I would bring this back to our sales process. You know, our sales process is broken up into two distinct pieces. The first one being around fiscal year planning, and that's the point at which we incorporate our things like territory planning, account planning, and white space analysis. It's a critical function, not just to do before the fiscal year begins, but then to regularly maintain it and update it over time. And that, of course, feeds the information our sales teams have to manage their opportunities through the selling cycle.
Okay. So the account planning process is incorporated into your annual fiscal planning process. Did I understand you correctly?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really good thought. You know, I don't think sometimes people think about it as part of the strategic annual planning process, but given everything else you're doing at that time of year, that makes perfect sense to do that. So let me make a quick note of that. All right, my last question in this segment is regarding the time to productivity for new sales hires. So can you give us a feel for, in your space, enterprise software, and maybe talk about enterprise software in general? How long should it take for a new sales hire to come up to speed?
Yeah, and we've done a fair amount of research around this as we built out our onboarding program. And you know, industry standards really dictate that you should have a lead time of about 90 days plus your typical sales cycle. And so that's really the benchmark by which we focus on measuring our new hires and then incrementally backing that down into an area we would consider optimal.
So that is a very useful way to look at it. I get asked this question all the time. Hey, sales benchmark index, your middle name is benchmark. So give me the benchmark for onboarding a new sales hire. And I do what consultants do that drives everybody crazy, which is, well, it depends. I mean, people hate that answer, well, it depends. So here's a good way to look at it. You got 90 days of lead time, then you drop somebody into a territory, and they've got a sales cycle. So if your sales cycle is 30 days, 90 plus 30 is 120 days. If your sales cycle is 90 days, 90 plus 90 is 180 days. So this is a good way for you to do some math here and try to answer this difficult question. All right, let's take another break. Would you like to implement some of the things that Shaun has spoken to you about today? My guess is that you will. If so, I think we might be able to help you. Consider having one of our experts spend some time with you in a workshop, maybe here at the studio. To get a feel for what's covered in the workshop, go to sbi.tips/2017 workbook and download a copy of the workbook that we use in these actual workshops. All right, we got one more segment with Shaun after this break, and we'll be back in a second.
Meet Jerry. He's the CEO for a startup in Silicon Valley. He just signed up with SBI On Demand, a membership for growing businesses that includes an SBI workshop, access to subject matter experts, and a library of exclusive video tutorials. With SBI On Demand, he can access the very best of SBI from anywhere, even when he's on vacation. Just don't tell his wife. How do you SBI? Take it to the next level with SBI On Demand. Learn more at sbiondemand.com.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. This is our last segment with Shaun demonstrating how to drive revenue per sales head up in time to productivity for new sales hires down. We're going to jump back into the questions, and we got 3. Shaun, you ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right. So if you could, describe the onboarding program for your new hires.
Sure. So we have a typical 90-day onboarding program that really blends together learning across our core competencies. And the way in which we introduce our new hires into the program is to provide them a period of some self-study in order for them to understand a little bit about what we do as a company, how we do it, and also the tools in which they need to be successful. Once they've completed that interim period, we then bring them into our corporate headquarters to really give them an opportunity to gel as a team, to meet our executives and our top sellers. And then we send them back into their locations with sponsors and a 90-day follow-up period as well. So we really try to make sure that the teams come in with the right baseline of knowledge. They've got a chance to workshop it with their teammates, and we make sure that they have a feedback mechanism once they've gotten back into the field.
Yeah, you know, it's a well thought out plan, and audience members, I would, you know, sometimes people refer to this type of approach as blended learning. So you see here, you got kind of self-study, which is probably an online exercise. Then there's this headquarters activity, which is probably facilitated workshops. And then you're back in the field for experiential learning, and you're supported by sponsors. That's a blended learning approach, and that's a best practice. If it's all just one thing, like e-learning, it's not as effective. If it's all just one thing, like, you know, come in for 3 days and we're going to kill you with PowerPoint by some product management people, it doesn't work. You've got to blend the learning approach here, and that's a very well thought out process, and you can refer back to Shaun's example there, something to follow. All right, so let's move past onboarding. Let's talk about professional skills development. So now I'm a veteran. I've been with your firm for a while. I'm making the number. Stuff changes. My buyer's changing. My competitors are changing. Maybe I got a new patch. I got new products, etc. How do you keep my skills sharp over time?
That's a great question, Greg. You know, it's an area that we're very much focused on as we go into this fiscal year as well. In fact, we have sellers that have a variety of different types of experiences, and so our focus is really to bring those teams together during our sales kickoff period, and then again throughout the middle of the year, in order to really identify those skills that they need assistance with. So commonly, we're hearing things like up-leveling your conversation with executives, negotiating skills, presentation skills. And so as we look to build out our FY18 plan, this is one of the areas that we'll be putting a lot of emphasis around.
What I love about your answer there is that you're not assuming that you and your team know what the field needs. You're getting your field sales organization together on a fairly regular basis, at least a couple times a year, and they're bubbling up to you the things that they need. Up-leveling, calling on executives, negotiations, presentation skills, etc. That's another best practice. I think sometimes sales enablement departments, at least what I have seen, is they kind of get on a schedule. Maybe their calendar is being dominated by product marketing or product management or something along those lines, and they're not necessarily listening to the field. You know, audience members, keep in mind, your customer is that field sales organization. So it makes sense to listen to your customer and give them what they need. All right, last question here is regarding content. So in your world and sales enablement, my God, you just need a never-ending supply of high-quality content in all of its various forms. So how do you produce all the content that you need?
Well, it's a bigger problem for us than just producing the content. It's also about making sure that our sales reps can find the content when they need it, because a lot of time is wasted, and probably in most organizations. Certainly, it was in ours for a while. But the content creation solution for us is really a very tight partnership with product management, product marketing, and sales. We take an approach of ensuring that the content we're building is addressing the customer problem, clearly articulates our use cases and the value around those use cases. And then in terms of making sure that that content gets served up, we focus on integrating that directly into our Salesforce environment. So as the salesperson is at a particular stage in the sales cycle, they've got content that matches what they need to accomplish with the customer.
So let me ask you a follow-up question on that last piece. So I think that's brilliant. So people are using Salesforce, your sales process is in Salesforce. Let's say I go from stage 2 to stage 3. Does the system proactively serve up to me the content that I need at that stage?
That's exactly right. So we have an integration into Salesforce that has that is aware of what content maps to what stage based on a simple tagging process, and it will serve up that content depending on where the salesperson is at any stage in the process.
Yep. So audience, pay attention here. This is a best practice. Unfortunately, however, it's not deployed as often as it should be. Some people call that guided selling, but what it basically does is it removes the hurdle of the salesperson. So I'm in stage 3, I need to accomplish X, Y, Z to leave my exit criteria in stage 3 and go to stage 4. And then, sometimes many organizations send me into the content graveyard, known as SharePoint or Box or Dropbox or what have you. And I spend hours and hours and hours hunting and pecking to find that, silver bullet piece of content. Don't do that. If you're in sales enablement, take the work out of it for the salesperson, produce high quality content, stick it in the sales process. They'll use it more often and they'll become more effective. All right, Shaun, that was just a fantastic demonstration, which is what I asked you to do today. You shared with us several pearls of wisdom, and you guys are doing some advanced stuff there. So I know you're super busy, and part of benchmarking, if you will, is you got to give and take. I know that you've been a consumer of our content for a long time. I appreciate your willingness to give back to the database, if you will, and come on the show and share your wisdom with the team.
It's been a pleasure, Greg. Thanks very much. And we look forward to continuing to drink from the font of wisdom that is Sales Benchmark Index. So thanks.
Okay, very good. All right, and I want to thank you, the SBI audience, for tuning in. Last quarter, this show hit another milestone. Get this, roughly 1/3 of our first-time podcast listeners came to our show after receiving a recommendation from a subscriber. I cannot think of a bigger compliment for our show, so thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for recommending our show to your professional networks. If you want to learn more about this topic or the other areas that we focus on, go to salesbenchmarkindex.com and register and create an account. Now, why the heck would you want to do that? Well, we publish a lot of content. We publish twice a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If you don't create an account and you don't personalize your experience with us, we're going to spam you. You do not want to get spammed. So by creating an account, you can choose the topics that you're interested in and how often you want to learn about them. And we will adhere to your prescription once you give it to us. So go ahead and create an account and we'll make sure we give you exactly what you want when you want it. All right, as always, until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on SBI services, case studies, the SBI team and how we work, or to subscribe to our other offerings, please visit us at salesbenchmarkindex.com.